Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is an entitled People story. I never imagined that my first job out of college would turn into a nightmare situation. When I was hired as an office assistant at Decker Industries, I thought I had landed my dream opportunity. It was a respected company in my field, the salary and benefits were great, and the office space was amazing. If only I had known then what kind of boss I'd be dealing with. Julie Decker was the founder and CEO of the company. From the outside, she seemed like a savvy businesswoman who had built a successful enterprise. But behind closed doors, she was a complete nightmare. The first week was fine. Julie hardly acknowledged me as I went about my duties, answering phones, organizing files, handling appointments, and assisting the other employees when needed. But soon her requests started getting more frequent and stranger. First, it was demands for coffee and food multiple times a day. Even though we had an office kitchen, she insisted I go out and get her special orders from expensive cafes and restaurants. I was spending half my day just fetching her meals. Next, she had me washing her car daily and running random personal errands for her during work hours. I was hired to be an office assistant, not someone's personal servant. The last straw was when she brought her dog to work and declared that I was now responsible for walking, feeding, and even bathing the thing. I didn't sign up to be a dog sitter. When I tried to politely decline or ask for help with my actual job duties, Julie always dismissed me saying, "You'll do as I ask, now stop complaining." It was clear she saw me as someone she could push around and treat like a slave. The worst part was the other employees were too afraid of her to say anything. Though they gave me sympathetic looks, no one dared stand up to her. After weeks of this treatment, I'd had enough. I decided to maliciously comply with her absurd demands, following every order to the letter. I figured it would either force Julie to see how ridiculous she was being, or I'd end up fired and free from her tyranny. So the next day, when she barked at me to walk her dog, I immediately stopped working and took the dog out for a full 2-hour stroll around the block. Every time the dog stopped to sniff or do its business, I waited patiently instead of rushing back. When Julie screamed at me to get her lunch from a cafe 30 minutes away, I rushed out and sat in traffic both ways just to bring her back a sandwich. Needless to say, it wasn't so fresh by the time she got it. For a week, I followed every insane order, ignoring my actual job and the massive backlog of work piling up. After me neglecting my real duties for days, things started falling apart at Decker Industries. Julie was livid, but she only had herself to blame. My exaggerated compliance was shining a spotlight on the effects of her irrational demands. She couldn't write me up without looking foolish. Finally, she called me into her office and said, "I don't think things are working out. Clean out your desk." Music to my ears. I walked out of Decker Industries that very day, never looking back. Found a much better job at a respected firm where I was actually valued for my skills. As for Decker Industries, losing their one competent employee was apparently their downfall. Without me handling the day-to-day office needs, things spiraled out of control. They ended up losing major clients and had to shut down just 6 months after I left. I heard from former co-workers that Julie was ousted by the board of directors soon after. Apparently, they got fed up with her bizarre management and behavior too. She drove the company into the ground. So in the end, my malicious compliance paid off. I escaped a toxic job and got the last laugh when the bully boss ran her own business into the ground. Just desserts for trying to treat me like a personal slave. The next one is a pro-revenge story. Backstory. I worked at this hotel for over 2 years and was one of 2 people left that went through the training when our hotel changed hotel franchises. During this training, we were told about certain rules the company had. Cast manager, front desk manager. He only was here for 6 months at this point. Me, I'm a nice guy unless you are a bully or entitled person. A few others I will mention as we go through. Story. One afternoon, I was scheduled to work second shift 3:11. I walked in and both AM front desk co-workers looked like they had been massively crying as their makeup was smeared. My manager looking quite pissed. I ask, "What's wrong?" Manager. "We have a major jerk as a guest. This guy is the highest level on the rewards for the hotel chain. He is very demanding and wants free upgrades, free this or that, and screams anytime he has an interaction with the staff. This guy has made every department call me complaining about him. Now this guy just came to the desk and screamed at these 2 co-workers until they both were crying. These 2 ladies were fresh high school graduates and were very sweet and innocent people. They loved helping people and didn't deserve this treatment. As he is explaining this, I look up this guy's room details. Once my manager finishes explaining everything this guy had done, I see this guy's info. I had a smile from ear to ear. I reply, "Didn't you see he is an employee of a different hotel?" Manager, "Yes, but so what?" I replied, "First off, while you travel as an employee, you are required to behave and be respectful. It is in the fine print on the discount form." I grabbed his form and showed it to the manager. Failure to be respectful can lead to having your employee discount suspended or permanently revoked, and even get you terminated. You need to call this guy's hotel and ask for the GM, then explain to him who you are and what this guy is doing. I look up the hotel phone number and call the hotel and then handed my manager the phone. Manager, after his call ends with the GM, he has an evil and satisfying smile on his face. His GM is steaming mad after I described all the stuff this guy has done. Main switchboard phone rings. I answered, "Hello, thank you for calling hotel name. How may I direct your call?" Caller, "I want to speak to entitled Jerk's room, please." I replied, "Absolutely, sir. Have a nice day." Transfer the call and looked at my manager and saying with a sarcastic tone, "Someone wanted to talk to entitled Jerk G. I wonder who that could be." Manager continues after he stopped laughing. The GM gave me his personal cell phone number and said, if I have any more issues at all, to call him immediately. I am leaving the phone number next to the switchboard. If you need it, call him. I told manager, "Your revenge is done, now for my revenge." Manager wide-eyed, "Oh crap, what are you going to do?" Me smiling a very evil smile. "You'll see." I pick up the phone to make a call. "Hello, Hotel Rewards customer service. Yes, I would like to report someone using reward account while using employee discount on his stay." Customer service. "He can't do that," I replied. "I know I'm calling to report him." I gave her the guest reservation number and rewards member number. I continued, "I bet anything if you dig through this guy's history you will find all his stays are probably at employee discount." Customer service. "I'm starting a ticket to have this guy's account investigated." I replied, "Thank you," then hang up the phone. The manager watched as I then remove his rewards number from his stay. My manager had a huge grin on his face. "That was awesome." I explain, "Oh, I'm not quite finished with him yet. It is time to go spread the news to all departments he is no longer a rewards member." I made a new key for his room without concierge access. I walked around to every department. As I explained why I was stopping by, everyone had the same reaction as soon as I mentioned the guy's name. "Oh God, now what about this a-hole?" I finished explaining how he was no longer a reward member, and if he gives anyone issues to call the front desk immediately, and his GM already probably tore him a new one just a minute ago. Everyone was so happy at this news. I finally went to the concierge room, used the guest's new key to void his current key. Then I walked into the room and explained the information to the evening concierge. She cringed at the mention of his name, after explaining she would not have to deal with him again, and asked her to leave the morning person a note about this guy not allowed in the concierge room anymore. She was very happy. While I was gone, evidently the manager explained what we did to the 2 a.m. front desk ladies. The minute I got back to the desk, both my front desk coworkers all came up to me and gave me a huge hug and thanked me so many times. Manager to me after the other coworkers went home, "Do me a huge favor, please." I replied, "Sure, what's up?" Manager, "If I ever piss you off, please come tell me so I can fix the issue." Later that night, entitled Jerk comes to the desk hat in hand, politely saying his key doesn't work. I replied, "Oh, so sorry about that, let me make you a new key." In the best fake smile I can muster. Aftermath. Next day I check his rewards account and it is now suspended. Check back next week. Sorry, account number not found. The next one is a petty revenge story. I can't take credit for this one. My uncle is a 76-year-old veteran and still sharp as a tack. He's quite the character and always cracks me up with his stories. As some of you may remember, early in the pandemic when no one really knew how COVID was spreading, the only stores open were supermarkets. They essentially made every aisle a one-way only, in that everyone was supposed to go in the same direction, so up one aisle and down the next. The problem is, if you forgot an item and went back, you risk going in the wrong direction to retrieve it, or having to go down the aisle next to it just to come back up. I remember a lot of people not really observing these signs as it was kind of absurd. Most supermarkets at the time were also offering special hours for seniors so they could shop in a less crowded store, usually at 7/8 a.m. My aunt and uncle went grocery shopping during this hour. One day, while waiting in line to pay, my aunt realized she forgot an item and asked my uncle to go retrieve it. But when he got to the aisle, he was facing the wrong direction. Seeing as though there was only one other person in the aisle, He went down it in the wrong direction, rather than having to go down the aisle next to it, only to come back up. But as he started making his way down the aisle, a Karen, clearly not a senior, entered with her cart from the other end of the aisle, going in the right direction. She started making her way towards my uncle, and when she got 5 feet away, loudly said, "You were going in the wrong direction." My uncle, who was looking for his item on the shelf, was startled and turned around. "What?" Karen, even louder this time, said, "You're going the wrong way." My uncle took a moment to reflect and replied, "You know what, you're right. My parole officer told me the same thing. He said, Eddie, you've been going the wrong way your whole life." When I was in prison, Karen's eyes grew wide and she couldn't get away from him fast enough. The next one is a malicious compliance story. Some many years ago, I worked customer service for a company that managed a Medicare Part D drug plans, and the annual enrollment period rolled around. And during that time, it got chaotic, on top of the usual caring for customers, answering their questions, fixing problems. We had to enroll people into our plans. And it was a bit of a process. There were questions that needed to be asked and answered, information that had to be imparted, and at the end of it all, a long spiel explaining our responsibilities and the customer's responsibilities and important information the customer had to verbally consent to. So in the midst of this, I get a woman who is angry she has to do this, and is angry at how much time the whole process is taking. I explain to her I'm trying to get her through this all as quickly as possible. Then we get to the end, and I explain that I have to read her the terms of service, and I need her to verbally confirm yes to it all. Immediately, she starts carrying on how she just doesn't have the time to listen to it. I tell her I'm legally required to read this to her. She doesn't want to hear it, just sign her up. I explain again that to complete the sign-up process, I have to read this to her and she needs to acknowledge it. Another round of she doesn't want to hear it, doesn't want to agree to it. I can just skip it and sign her up. No, I can't. I can read through it quickly, however she still needs to hear it and say yes. More arguing she doesn't want to. Let's just say she agrees to it and I can sign her up. By this time I'm thinking, lady, if you had just let me read this instead of arguing with me, we could have been done by now, which I couldn't say. Instead, I inform her that I have to read this agreement to her, and she needs to verbally agree to it. If she doesn't, I will not be able to sign her up for Medicare Part D. She will not have a Part D plan, she will not be able to enroll in a plan until the next year's enrollment period, and she will have to pay a fine for not having a plan this year. She ignores all that, tells me to sign her up, and hangs up. Of course, I don't sign her up, and I write down the whole incident in the call log, that I explained several times that I needed to go over the agreement and get her consent, the penalties to her if she didn't, that she refused, and that I did not sign her up. Several weeks after the new year, a coworker sitting near me gets a call from a woman who is furious that when she went to get a prescription filled, the pharmacy wasn't able to run the insurance on it, and when they checked that she didn't have a Part D drug plan. The coworker asked for the woman's name, which was the woman who I didn't sign up. My coworker checked and said the caller did not have a plan with us. Worse for the caller, we could not enroll her since she had missed the enrollment period. Imagine how much easier things would have gone for everyone if that woman had just let me do my job and read the service agreement, and she just said yes to it. The next one is an entitled people story. I, 28F at the time, would like to share a story of an ex-coworker, Sarah, 29F. Not only did we work together 12 plus hours a day, but we're housemates, not by choice, sharing staff accommodation. This all went down in 2020, and though we were working in tourism, we were very busy because no one could travel to leave the state, so everyone was enjoying their own backyard, as it were. If you have experience in this sort of career, you know you have to be able to get along well with others and live in communal harmony, because you are constantly around the same people all the time, and you can't really escape them even in your home life. Most people are extra considerate given the circumstances, but not Sarah. Sarah had, and I can only presume still has, the most warped sense of entitlement, including demanding to use my Netflix act and being personally offended and harassing me when I changed my password, to being written up, but not fired, for physically bullying other female staff, to being straight up confrontational in refusing to pay her part of the fuel money when she begged me all day to give her a ride to the capital city 3 hours away. Ultimately, the job did not pay me enough to put up with her shenanigans, among other things. Who is not firing a staff member who physically assaults and screams at their supervisor in front of guests? And not long after this incident, I moved on to a much better paying gig. But I digress. We had another flatmate, co-worker living with us, 55 mem. The two of them were making dinner. I was not involved at all and was in my bedroom. Sarah knocks on my door holding up my bottle of wine. "Did you buy this at the bottle shop down the street?" I replied that I had not. I got it from the city 3 hours away. She turned around and walked back to the kitchen telling our other flatmate, "I'll just drink it tonight and replace it." And she put the bottle on the dining room table and continues chatting with him. As it so happens, it was a cheap bottle of wine that I bought for slow cooking the beef cheeks that were in the fridge, not for drinking. In fact, it would taste pretty gross to drink. I went to the kitchen, told Sarah this isn't a good drinking wine. Please don't use it, and put it back on my shelf in the pantry. It was a surprise to absolutely no one to see later on that night. Sarah had indeed opened my wine, and it was now sitting on her pantry shelf. What le fouquet? The level of disrespect was far too much, and I was done, officially. The next morning we got up early to go to work. Usually we leave the house around 5:40 a.m. for a 6 a.m. start. Sarah does not have a car, and I drive everyone to and from work every single day. Sarah, nor other flatmate for that matter, has never given me a single cent in fuel money the whole season. On this day, flatmate was out going to a doctor's appointment. Sarah, chronically late, was still getting ready, while I had my coffee in hand and headed to my car. She didn't even bother to say good morning, let alone mention anything about my bottle of wine that I specifically asked her not to use. Yet she was telling me to wait for her because she was almost ready. I told her very clearly that due to her disrespect and entitlement, she was no longer welcome in my car and would have to organize her own transportation from now on, and walked outside. She looked like a stunned mullet. As I was opening the driver's side door, she comes storming out of the house, angrily squawking, "Hang on, what's going on here?" I replied, "You're not my friend, and I don't owe you any favors." Befuddled, she spat, "Yeah, I know." I replied, "Great," and drove off to work by myself. She purposely did not speak to me at all after that, which was actually very nice of her, considering her usual passive-aggressive, demeaning way of speaking to people she thought she was better than. Highlights include her smiling and waving to a group of co-workers on a different vessel, which included myself, with me enthusiastically waving back with a big crap eating grin on my face. When she realized it was me, she immediately shot her hand back down and looked like someone had just punched her mother in the face. I really enjoyed the last few shifts I had there before I pieced the F out. When I left, she told my boss that I ran over her phone with my car. I found out that not long after she was fired. The next one is an entitled parent story. I'm in my late 20s. I live on my own and have my own car. My parents are super strict and made me miss out on the college experience, which I'm still bitter about. I come from a family of extroverted people, such as my cousin, who's also accomplished career-wise, but still throws parties with around 70 people, responsibly. She got to have the whole exciting college experience, involving large social events and pursuit of creative passions, and now has fun alongside her career. She also wrote and starred in her own musicals, and I have a similar passion for acting that I've never gotten to pursue. I got the similar genes of being fun-loving, creatively passionate, and wanting to enjoy my life. I moved out at 25 to make up for what I've missed out, or at least enjoy my current freedom. The years after moving out have been the best years of my life. However, my parents still make me feel restricted. They literally hired detectives to remotely tap into my phone and read my text messages. They found out I was staying over a friend's house. One of their rules is to never stay over someone's house, and got so mad that they threatened to show up the friend's house to tell her to leave me alone. They're also tracking my car because they know when I'm out late and scold me for it. I can probably find the tracker and remove it, but the detectives part worries me since they're able to do this without a tracker. I guess I'm venting and asking, how do I get them to stop this? Should I threaten to reduce in-person time with them from once a week to every 2 weeks? They got really mad when I suggested that before because even with weekly visits, they miss me too much. I feel sad because I'm missing out socially and romantically, as they still manage to enforce their rules of don't go out after sunset, which is 5:30 p.m., don't sleep over, and don't go out on weekdays to focus on work. I would love to meet and organically form a romantic connection with someone, but my opportunity to meet new people is restricted since after work, weekend times after dark, and the once-a-week day they see me, since they occupy the daylight hours, are off limits for socializing. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We'll see you again tomorrow.